French researchers are reporting that they revived human brain tissue post-mortem and used it to run a robot, and it was capable of forming new memories and acting upon them. And yes, this is very fascinating and makes me deeply uncomfortable. We've seen some major advancements when it comes to reviving post-mortem tissue, and there's a number of reasons why you would want to do this. In the case of a brain, this is really a research platform, so you have something that you can experiment on that is not an actual person. This came from organ transplants because yes, you have to keep organs alive for a little while, and yeah, things like nerves have also been transplanted. I do need to say that when it comes to Beck's org, they may have revived chemical activity, but the brain is not functional, it's not learning anything, but that's not entirely true about our next study. Now, this was just announced, it is a preprint, and it came from a well-respected robotics institute in France, LIRMM. And yes, I checked because I too was in disbelief. Before we move forward, I do want to remind people that these are subsections of cortex. They are not whole brains, although it does certainly seem that whole brains could be used with combined research with brain in a vat, i.e. Beck's org. I know this all sounds very sci-fi, and I am aware of that, which is why I include citations in the description of every video. They took subsections of human cortex just hours after somebody had expired and then oxygenated it to keep cellular activity. Then they used the same mechanisms that we use to hook up brain organoids, so lab-grown brains, to a robot. They have a bidirectional flow in which electricity can stimulate nerves, and then the nerves can communicate back with the robot. Even though the person who used to contain said brain is no longer alive, they were able to elicit electrical activity, and it also demonstrated sensory motor learning. So they used it to control that electrical hand. Every time it gave the correct impulse, it would then control the hand, and that hand would play a note on the piano. They started with a process called motor babbling, in which it did something very similar to how babies learn, where they just got random impulses, and those impulses could be associated with a note. Then they taught it how to play certain notes. So once it got the correct one, it would get electrical stimulation, reinforcing that neural pathway. In this way, the robotic hand learned to play certain notes in certain orders on the piano, and it had feedback so that the brain could know what it was actually playing. And then they wanted to see if it could learn something new. So they had a human actually play notes on a piano. It would be fed into the microphone and then back to the robot brain complex. Yeah, the brain was able to learn a brand new song, even though it is not in a body, even though it is listening through an interface that we're not familiar with, and even though it is controlling a robot arm, yeah, it was able to learn. This shows that even post-mortem, the brain is active. It can still learn new things. That means that the end of at least our biological life is not the end of what our brain is capable of, and that is important information. You may ask, and perhaps correctly so, why? Why are we doing this? Well, it may be very useful. We assume that at the point that somebody expires, their brain rapidly loses the capacity to function. In fact, when people are comatose, we decide at what point the brain is no longer viable. However, we have demonstrated that the individual components of the brain, at least, are still capable of working and even learning new things, even hours after somebody is gone. We may have missed the capacity to help a patient. We may have underestimated the degree to which our brain is capable of surviving and even thriving. These platforms could be very valuable when it comes to medical research, and brain in a vat is pretty extreme. So if we take an entire brain and revive it, that requires a whole heck of a lot of specialized equipment, and they haven't been able to keep it alive for very long. If we just take a little subsection of cortex and can use that as a medical research platform, that is much more efficient and much more reasonable. And while organoids are extremely easy to grow, yes, you can take stem cells from an adult person, you can even take skin cells, turn those into stem cells, and then grow that into a brain. It is essentially a fetal brain. All of our research on brain organoids are extremely limited because they show the effects on a developing person. And yeah, that is valuable in its own right, but it doesn't really help for treatments for adults. And yes, I suppose that one of the messages, and it was one of the very first things I thought about, is that it shows that disembodied human brains post-mortem can run and operate robots. And we're not talking about fetal brains that have never experienced the world before, we're talking about something that has already had a full life. And no, it's not conscious. It's a little subsection of cortex. It's a functional subunit of a human brain. It's not the brain itself, although we really don't know that much about it. We don't know how experiences would change their ability to learn. This would also allow us to study neurodegenerative conditions and try out treatments too. Would I want to be placed in a robot post-mortem? Yes, I think that would be fun. Would I just want to be a brain in a vat? No. Did this paper make me stare at the roof for a good hour, contemplating the meaning of life and suffering? Yes. Yes, it did. I do hope you've enjoyed this. I will keep you up to date on the cutting edge. Follow for more.